All right, welcome to today's episode of B2B Unlock podcast. I'm thrilled to introduce Jamie Roach, one of the directors at JWR Accountants. Welcome to the podcast, Jamie.
Marcel, morning. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Jamie, your company is a modern and progressive firm of chartered accountants and chartered tax advisors based in Hampshire with a mission to empower clients by simplifying complex financial matters. You specialize in everything from audits and bookkeeping to tax solutions and payroll services. And I know your company has a strong reputation for its client-centric ethos and commitment to grow through strong partnerships and recommendations, which I'd love to explore deeper today. So tell me, how did you get into this space in the first place?
So me, in terms of accountancy, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So weirdly, previous to accountancy, a little bit left field. I was actually a footballer when I left school. So I played for our local club, which is Portsmouth. So I had big ambitions to not be an accountant and become a footballer instead. But like a lot of people at that sort of age, you get so far and you don't quite make it. So you're back into the real world, and I guess like a lot of young people, so you sort of fall into these jobs and you show an interest in a certain career, and you get a trainee position, and you get that role, and very quickly you find something that you enjoy, and that was many many years ago now, and started an apprenticeship, and very much enjoyed it, and realized I was good at it, and I went through all the qualifications quite quickly, and yeah, the rest is history, I guess.
It's sometimes like, of course, we have these dreams. They unfortunately do not always come to realization. But would you say, is it like close to doing like your dream job and something that you actually enjoy delivering the results that you're delivering?
Yeah, it's weird because I now look back and think probably as a kid, despite my love for football, I probably always had a strong interest in business. And yeah, I think it's important that you do something that you enjoy, whether you're employed or run your own business. And weirdly, I speak to lots of people and probably advise lots of other business owners to try and get the business to run without them and all of these great things. But actually, in hindsight, my own personal position is I enjoy what I do, and the dealing with the clients and doing the actual work in addition to running the business is very enjoyable for me. So I think I would find it hard if that wasn't the case and I just had a business which I didn't really enjoy, and maybe it ran itself, which sounds brilliant, but it's really important that we get enjoyment and fulfillment from our day job, because we spend a lot of time at work, right? So I think whether you're
Yeah.
employed or you've got your own business, you've got to find something that's right for you and you enjoy, because then you'll be the best version of yourself, and your clients will reap the rewards from that as well.
Absolutely. And I love how you mentioned, like, yeah, you build a business that runs itself at some point, but pretty much you still need to build it to that point, right? So unless you actually enjoy it, it may take you longer or maybe not even get to that point, right? Which also ties back with you building an amazing business. And there's so much that you offer because you have such a big capacity of knowledge around building a business. I want to discuss more on the client advisory services and market trends that are happening right now. So, how do you see the demand for client advisory services evolving in the accounting market, and what strategies are you implementing to meet this demand?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So I think slowly but surely we're seeing business owners realizing that they do need more support. I think people are more open now to receiving that support. I think some of it is maybe traditionally the older business owners felt like the accountant just did the usual compliance work and were happy to do everything else themselves, and they've been very successful in doing it. But I think the younger generation now are more open to reaching out in all aspects of their life and asking for help, whether it's a business coach, whether it's an accountant or other advisors. So I think it's a slow burn, don't get me wrong. So, and I guess our view from our side is that, some firms will probably stay away from it, which is fine. They'll probably just say, we'll keep to the compliance work, which there'll always be a need for it. But our vision and our strategy has always been quite the opposite. Don't get me wrong, we do lots and lots of compliance work, and it's very much our bread and butter, and we have to continue that and keep our standards really high. But as we are seeing the fact that clients are needing this help and want this help, our job then as a firm of accountants is to make sure that we've got a toolkit, and across the team we've got the ability and experience to be able to provide that help to the clients. And advisory is a bit of a buzzword in the industry, but for me it's anything outside of compliance, and so that might include group reorganizations, share options, exit planning, tax advice, M&A work, exit planning. And it's the really enjoyable work, if you ask me. The compliance work is probably, as I say, more of our bread and butter, but it is a
Mm.
slow burn. And so it will happen over several years, which is good because it gives us chance to make sure that we've got the ability to be able to provide it to clients. From our side, then it's educating the clients to see this as an investment rather than a cost, because my point I say to people is the cost of not doing something is more than the actual cost of paying for the advice. That sounds great, but not everybody necessarily buys into that. So it's just educating people that we can offer them that other help. And I think at times I maybe it works in our favor, but I get a little bit frustrated because when I see a new client, I realize that they really want this help and they're willing to pay for it, but maybe their current advisors don't want to give them that help, or maybe just don't ask the question. And I think from an accountancy perspective, it won't come natural for lots of people. So we have to make sure, and we have to appreciate that not everybody from a team perspective wants to do that work, because it's no doubt harder and
Mm.
very different than what we're used to. But it's something that we really really enjoy. And my favorite saying is we like problematic clients, people that give us in a nice way problems to solve, and that's what we're trying to create at JWR.
It's amazing because like the advisory services, as you mentioned, like people are getting personal trainers nowadays, right? Even having like a person that takes care of your mental health, it's like a
Mm.
normal thing to have, right? But having like that financial advisor in your company is still kind of like, from my perspective, people can really imagine what kind of need would they what kind of help would they need, right, to have at that position. And I know that you mentioned like exit planning and such, but can you give me maybe some other examples of like actually how you're helping right now with the clients with maybe like maybe also profit margins or some other areas of the financials within the company?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we pick profit margins as an example, the starting point that we're trying to do with clients is to get them on that journey. So it's realizing that it's a slow and a long-term journey. So the starting point is make sure that they're getting that information. If it's measured, it's managed. But if you don't measure this information throughout the year, you can't manage it. So naturally these business owners want to most likely improve their profit margin. Of course they will, but that's a long-term strategy. And so the starting point is to make sure that we've got the right data, which is accurate and in a timely manner. And then the thing that I've learned over the years is from an advisor perspective, two things. Firstly, realize that don't try and have lots and lots of short-term wins, because you will overwhelm the client. So if you're seeing them monthly or quarterly, just give them one or two things that they need to work on. And I think the second thing is the best advisors actually ask lots of questions. I used to feel like I've always got to come up with the solutions, but of course, no one knows their business better than the actual business owner themselves. So I used to feel that I had to always find an angle. Obviously, if it's technical and it's a tax related bit of advice, that's my bag. But actually, I've come to learn that I just need to steer the client. And that's probably off the back of support that I've received from people where they just ask me and I answer my own questions, if you like. So yeah, working them from a financial perspective. And then what also happens is as you start talking to the client, it opens up lots of other conversations. You then start talking about the team, incentivizing the team, and then they say, "Oh, I'd like to give, my senior management team some shares in the business." And all of a sudden, all of these pieces of work and advice open up. But as I say, the key is to just put it on the roadmap and try and achieve one thing at a time. Otherwise, what happens is
Mm.
you overwhelm the client, and or as a result of that, nothing actually gets achieved because it becomes too much. So it's saying, right, this might take us a couple of years to get where we want to get to,
Mm.
but I want you to feel that every time we have a conversation, we make regular small improvements to the business. So yeah, it's a great side of our business for sure.
Absolutely. And I can already from my perspective as well feel like why you're excited for that, because it's working on that business, specifically growing it from a different kind of perspective, still looking at that financial side, but it's more exciting than just, let's say, the compliance, right?
Of
So
course.
you get to actually build and improve something. That ties very closely to obviously the progress and all the automations and all the AI buzz that's happening in the world nowadays. So, and in accounting space as well. How are you using AI and automation in your current process and services? Where are you automating and adopting that?
So again, naturally a really interesting subject. The other thing that I've learned over the years is we have to embrace these technologies and automation and AI. And I love ChatGPT. I pretty much use it every day of the week. But at the same time, I've learned to do it steadily. So don't jump on these things straight away. And I see lots of people talking about, it transforming their business in the short term. I think you can get too overexcited with these things. So it's about steady progress. It's about embracing them. There's an expectation, especially again from the younger generation, that when they deal with you, whatever business you're in, they want it to be slick and quick because that's how life is now. So they want things quickly. And I think if you can automate anything, it's going to give that impression and make everybody's life easier, ours and theirs. And the key is to make sure that we're spending the right amount of time on the things that you can't automate, which is a lot of this advisory work. So yeah, we very much embrace it. Some people are frightened by it, but it's about embracing it, but also making sure that there's a big risk with this stuff that we become too robotic. So from our
Mm.
perspective, whilst it might seem a little bit negative, I always look at these things, okay, it's a positive, it's great, we can do that quicker and we can do extra work now because we've got more bandwidth. But there's also risk with error with that because we do become a bit robotic. So the key thing from a
Mm.
quality perspective is that we're not just, I don't know, using zero bookkeeping, for example, and thinking, oh, great, it does it all for you. It helps you along the way, but of course, we've still got to make sure we're thinking and what we're doing. So we're battling against that, aren't we? A lot of more traditional people will say, it's better back in the day when we had written cash books or whatever, because you couldn't make those mistakes. That's right, but you'd had lots of
Yeah.
human error mistakes. So yeah, it's something we're really excited about, and we're very much on that journey and embracing it.
Can you give us some example of where, like, in everyday action, you're using these tools?
Yeah, sure. So I think from a ChatGPT perspective, I think on some of our social media and marketing side of things, we just ask it to polish some of the work that we do. So again, we're using it, but we're working on it ourselves from the outset, and then just getting some polishing side of things. And then automation in terms of bookkeeping, we use things like Zero and auto entry, which massively helps with automating that transactional work and putting it into the bookkeeping system. So we're hot on that and doing lots of really good things working with clients on that sort of stuff. And then I guess outside of that, we're proactively looking at everything we do and saying, can that talk to that? How do we streamline these processes? So it's a
Mm.
long-term strategy for sure, but one we're really enjoying.
Are you using that as one of the key features or USPs to track and maybe convert some prospects in your pipeline?
Yes, a little bit. We're probably not as automated as I'd like in that respect. In terms of our, new client pipeline, we very much go for sort of quality over quantity. So we have a little bit of filter, I guess, in that respect. So we don't get hundreds of new client inquiries every month because, as a service-based industry, it's all of this stuff is very time consuming, and so we want the quality coming through. So have we automated that process as best of our ability? Probably not yet, but it's very much something that I'm going to be working on personally over the next 3 6 months. Our social media presence is increasing all of the time, and I just want to make sure that as this increases, we don't have any bottlenecks as a result of it. I want to enjoy and embrace those new client leads. So it's something I'm looking forward to doing for sure over the coming months.
So pretty much like staying competitive and maintaining the competitive edge comes in second after you're making sure that you're working with quality people, so you're not running out of that pipeline too quickly to focus on that edge, but rather on that quality of the prospect that you're working with.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because the client accountant relationship is one which should be a long-term relationship. And so, when we're talking 10, 15, 20 years, hopefully lots of our clients have been with us that long. So, and it's a massive thing to do also change accountants. Realistically, people aren't necessarily going to change to us from a cost perspective because of where we are in the market. And so we want the right leads coming in. And I think we've done a pretty good job so far at making sure the people we are talking to are the right type of client. We've got a little bit of a filter on our calls that get booked in. And also, I think our approach from a social media perspective has been utilized to attract that certain type of client, which is effectively for us, I guess our core client is someone in the million to 20 million sort of turnover. Got lots below, don't get me wrong, and lots above as well. But they're the types of clients we want to attract. And they sometimes take a little bit longer and there's more involved. But once we've got them on board, so to speak, it's a really important and long-term relationship that we're working on with those guys.
Absolutely. Like having that ICP in place and knowing your target audience makes everything easier because you're just building or reverse engineering from that outcome that you want to simply achieve. And you're mentioning the quality. I mean, I want to get into the social media because you're talking about that a lot. I want to understand the strategy there, but I'm also interested in outside of that kind of revenue range. What are some other green flags that you're looking for in your future clients? How do you qualify the prospect to be worthy of working with you?
Yeah, so the first one that we always look at is turnover. So generally at the moment we are not dealing with clients with turnover of less than 250K. And when I say that, if we're careful, we won't ever take any sort of startups on. We'll look at it and have a conversation. What's the aspirations of this business? So because from a turnover perspective, if let's just say our core client is around that million to 10 to 20 million mark, so that's something that we're really working hard on. And
Mhm.
then I think when you're meeting the client, it's important. It's a bit like an interview with an employee, isn't it? This is a two-way thing. We very much want to foster that longer term relationship. So we've got to be comfortable that it's the type of client that we want to deal with, and of course vice versa. And sometimes we might see a client and say maybe it's not quite the right fit for whatever reason. It doesn't happen that often because I think our filter is pretty good. But yeah, that's really important because as I say, we're not selling widgets that we just churn people. It's a labor intensive job that we do. And
Mhm.
the onboarding of a client is quite time consuming. And so I guess with experience, you come to sometimes go with your gut instinct. And we've all probably taken clients on where we've had doubts at the start, and quite often, 6 months down the line, you thought, okay, well maybe I should have gone with my gut instinct. So it just comes with experience,
Yeah.
right?
Gotcha. Perfect. Okay. I'm excited to learn about your acquisition strategy and kind of what works for you because we've talked about in the beginning when I was introducing you, you have lots and lots of recommendations coming in and you have some organic strategy. If I'm not mistaken, you're not running any outbound campaigns, are you?
Correct. Yeah, correct. Yeah, we're not.
Awesome. So pretty much you need to get to some position to be able to afford that, but guide me through your current acquisition efforts and what you're doing.
Yeah, so I guess our clients come to us through one of three channels. One is client recommendations, which no matter what industry you're in, that is the best way of acquiring new clients. We love that
Absolutely.
because it means you've done a fantastic job for someone. It's not cost you anything, and also probably that referral, that lead you're getting is a good lead as well, and so the conversion rates on those are usually pretty good. You quite often find that business owners, the circles that they operate in, are similar, so they know people that are like-minded and have got similar sort of attributes and targets in life. So that's the first thing, and of course that just comes from hopefully doing a really good job for your existing clients. That's the starting point on client referrals. The second thing is to actually be really cheeky and ask them for a referral, and it's amazing how many times clients say, "Oh, I didn't realize you were looking for new clients." And they go, okay, now I know. Yeah, I've got lots of people that are always moaning about their accountant or whatever it might be. So we've all been guilty of that, just almost waiting for the phone to ring. And of course it does
Mm.
sometimes, but also it's just pushing the clients and saying, guys, we have to constantly look to acquire new clients because just because of the churn rates, our churn rate is very low in terms of people leaving, but naturally people retire, people sell, people give up self-employment. So every every single year you have to get a certain level of new clients just to stand still. So I think that's really important. So client referrals is always been a massive part of it. But I think probably a year or 18 months ago, I just thought to myself, well, that's fine and that's great, but I think it's not enough to just rely on those as a way of acquiring clients. So I've started doing a little bit more on social media, mainly on Instagram, if I'm honest with you. Again, going back to your point about reverse engineering the type of client that we want to deal with. A lot of our clients have been with us for many years. Some of them probably over the next 5 to 10 years will be probably looking to exit their business, and we obviously help them with that. And they might do a management buyout, and we keep the client. But also, we're keen to be working with the younger generation as well. So when I'm doing that social media work, I'm very much thinking about, yeah, who is my perfect client? What business have they got? What size business have they got? And probably based on the platforms that I use, such as Instagram, what age are they likely to be? So that and that's that's been steady. I've been pleased with how that's been going. I've been enjoying that. It's a little bit daunting, of course, when you first start these things and put yourself in the video for the first time. But we're getting that with that for sure. And then the third thing is just professional relationships with other professions, solicitors, mortgage advisors, brokers, and you have a network that you've built up over many years, and we work with these people. We've got lots of mutual clients. However, we're very much aware as accountants that it's quite often easier for us to refer a client to them rather than vice versa because of the nature of the relationship. So, for example, a solicitor will have a client that comes to them on an ad hoc basis that's already got an accountant, and they generally just want a one-off piece of work. Whereas we're probably the opposite. We've got lots of recurring clients that then want to use a solicitor or a mortgage advisor, etc.
Yeah.
And that's when we need those people. We work on those relationships to make sure that obviously our clients get a really, really good service, but we're just aware that actually them passing us clients is probably not going to be as often as the other way around. But that's just one of those things, right?
Okay, that's a very, very solid strategies that you're building. It's amazing that you don't have obviously all eggs in one basket, but you're relying on different sources. I would love to explore that content machine that you have going on in social media a bit more. So you mentioned Instagram. What other platforms are you running, and maybe what's your strategy? Do you have like a content calendar, or how do you come up with the content? Like whatever details you can give us on that.
Yeah, yeah. So it's mainly Instagram and TikTok. And I, again, in terms of reverse engineering the types of clients that we're looking for, I worked out that in terms of a profile, I think they're the most likely platforms to use for those people. So, and I started that probably 12, 13 months ago. Uh, I came to realize that my own buying decisions for certain things in my own life, one of them being a builder, ironically, to do some renovation work at home, I realized subconsciously that my decision was going to be made on lots of different things, but one of them was going to be a social media presence because I think I said to myself, and it's worked out to be the right decision. I said to myself, well, if someone's active on social media and showing off their work and talking about their work and just being proactive, I thought, well, they'll be like that when I deal with them, because when I deal with people, I want them to push me. I don't want them to agree with me all the time, and you want them to come up with new ideas rather than just doing as I say. And so
Mm.
when I played all that through in my head, I said, well, we're like that as accountants, in my opinion, and we need the rest of the world to know about it. So yeah, so my strategy, which I use, is I do some weekly, just once a week, go through and work out my content. So script, half script, some of it, of course. And then my wife does, videos me and edits my videos, and I do some sort of trending audio videos within that as well, with just some text to try and educate some people and build up some new relationships through that. So it's something we're enjoying. I think there's lots more to be done. I think, like everything in life, the hardest thing is to get started and get yourself in front of that camera and be talking and get used to it. And then yeah, we're looking forward to pushing on from there. So it's been a good success, but there's still lots more to come, and it's making the time to do these things, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it sometimes even seems that you're doing that without any tangible results, right? Because it's not as trackable. Like you can track likes and views, but you can't really, unless you have like this post-purchase survey, right? Understanding where the customer came from. It's very hard to justify all the time that you're putting in that. But at some level it subconsciously sells your product more and builds that trust more, similar to how we decided for that hire. It's important, but the priorities must be straight, and you must know why you're doing that in the first place to really keep pouring on that. Because I would say content game is one of the games where you need to be very consistent. Similar to SEO, you need to do the work consistently in order to reap the rewards, and it gets easier and easier if you perceive, right? So, but what I'm interested, there may be some brands that are just starting, and maybe they do not have the of having referrals and some connections just yet. Maybe they want to start with the content. If you were to start from zero right now, are there any outbound solutions or channels or strategies that you would maybe consider employing?
Yeah, no, really good question. You know, again, I think my point here, and of course, our marketing budget over the years has been minimal. And I think it's going back to that reverse engineer aspect. You need to consider who your target market is, and also understand where you are as a business. So we're in a fortunate position. We've been trading for a long time. We can be a little bit more choosy. When you start from scratch, that's not the case. And our business and our client base has evolved over those years. And so, you know, let's be honest, when you do start, within reason, you'll take on a lot of clients that maybe 10 years time, that might not be your client base. So I think firstly, it's to accept that that's likely to be the case. And I think but it's also understanding the decision. So why would someone move to you? And then, you know, make sure that you're not investing too much in strategies where you're going to see lots of churn. So for example, if you picked cold calling, you know, as an example in my space, my concern would be unless you got that absolute perfect timing where you just caught someone on a really bad day with their relationship with their accountant. Otherwise, if they're moving off the back of a cold call in my world, they're probably not going to be a long-term client. So I think if I was to start from scratch, you'd have to find the time to look at so many different avenues to build that core level of clients, and then you start getting a recommendation. But you're right, on day one, you've got no existing clients, so you might only have a handful. So I think you need to be able to look yourself in the mirror and, you know, go to physical networking events and just get yourself out there and make yourself really, really well known in the local area. I think that's online. I think that's physical networking events. Speak to other professionals, bank managers, financial advisors, and I think possibly too many people at that level think they're doing enough to generate new clients, but actually they're probably just scratching the surface. And so you need to, like you say, consistency, get in people's faces, be posting every single day, you know, at least once a day. And it's, you know, it's not easy, but if it was easy, everyone would do it, right? So it's
Mm.
you know, the fortunate thing we've got now in this remote world that we live in is that the opportunities are larger because we don't have to have clients that are on our doorstep. So I think from an online perspective, to invest that time and money and that area, I think is really, really key. But you know, you've got to find your niche, haven't you, and find the clients that you're looking for.
Would you agree? Because what I imagine, since this is a very time sensitive topic, someone changing the accountants or being in between accounting firms, it's more like having these pull strategies, such as like maybe SEO or Google search, or just as you said, being present at the event, networking and making sure people know about you when the time is right. You're the first person that comes to their mind. That's kind of what they should be looking for, right?
100%. And I think the thing that I've realized over the years is that to change accountants is a massive decision because we hold a really important role in their business. But you've also got to be realistic with their expectations. And so I even think that about myself at the moment. I think, okay, people see me and they see my social media presence, and that's fantastic. Well, very quickly you can book a call with me and you can become a client, you know, in a matter of hours or days, and that's how quick it can be. But actually and that happens and that's fantastic, but also from an expectation perspective, some people are not willing to take that jump. I'm probably asking too much. So I think in hindsight, me personally, we need to do a little bit more work around building that relationship with these people over a period of time and understanding that it takes time for people to make those decisions. And that's when you talk about your website and your email marketing and things like that. Not everybody is willing to just go, oh, okay, I like the look of this, I'm going to make that decision. A lot of people
Mhm.
are not quite ready. It's a slow burn. And I think definitely from my personal perspective, we need to work a little bit harder on understanding that and maybe expecting too much from those you know campaigns that we're doing, and need to provide people with more information and let them take their time and have some conversations. And yeah, that's the sort of learning that I've taken from it for sure.
I would continue on that partnership and acquisition strategy because there's been a rise in M&A activity in the accounting sector, right? And I'm very interested in like how JWR accountants are considering any strategy like partnerships or acquisitions to expand service or reach. Are you focusing in any way on this specific activity?
Sure. So there's been lots of M&A in our world and other professional service industries such as solicitors and IFAs and stuff. And I think that happens for a couple of reasons. I think firstly, we have recurring revenue and that's highly sought after from larger businesses and investors. So I think definitely last 5, 10 years, we've seen a lot of that happen. I think secondly, there's probably a lot of sole proprietors that are coming towards the end of their working career that may have left it a little bit late for their succession planning. And so, just local to us, I see a lot of these businesses with, say, 5 to 10 staff just exiting, and I sort of understand why that makes sense. It's their best option for all parties, or possibly all parties. So there's a lot of that going on for sure. Weirdly, our strategy is quite the opposite, which is, possibly good or bad. So we've looked at acquisition over the years, and I think it's a really competitive market now because of the reasons we just said. So there's lots of people looking for acquisition. So that's the first bit. And I think the second bit, when you look at the size of the businesses that are selling and the amounts you'd have to pay, sometimes when you've been in discussion with these people for say 3, 6 months, if you're generating some decent new clients in that time, you start thinking to yourself, we're better off just staying and concentrating what we're good at rather than acquiring a business. And that's happened
Yeah.
before on those micro businesses. But I think the other thing that I see from, so there's two really important people in these relationships. One's obviously the clients, and one is the team. And so the feedback I get from speaking to those people, being involved in those businesses, are sometimes negative around some of these consolidations that are happening. So I think from both of their perspective, they feel that whether it's their employer or their accountant firm, has maybe gone from that small, local, friendly sort of practice to probably more of a corporate. And so
Mhm.
there's that side of it. And I think the other side of it is that, because I guess depending on what the strategy is, because it's this, build and sell strategy, I think that quality levels and service levels are dropping as a result. So knowing that, I guess to use it to our advantage, our strategy is not to do that. So it's to stay as best we can to be that, local, friendly, down to earth accountant. And, the feedback we get from people on that front when they come to work for us is that, they enjoy that and they don't want to become part of a big corporate. So we're going to use that to our advantage and probably stay out of that space for either forever or for a long time, for sure.
Okay. Yeah. And this is also something that I think it's not talked about enough, because I think the general interest is just to grow beyond all measures and always talk about like how we can bring the next millions and how we can expand. But it's sometimes realizing what you want, and if the growth in new directions is the right type of growth, right? And knowing that is another level, I would say, of understanding yourself and your goals, and actually living a happier life, not chasing all the time, right? So I really like that you talked about this, because I don't think it's talked about enough. And since we're approaching the end of our conversation, I have this one question that I always like to ask. What are some trends or directions that you're seeing emerging in the next 5 to 10 years? And maybe if you were to guess or predict, what kind of massive or maybe even like a mediocre changes will be affecting the accounting industry?
So I think in terms of our clients, I think some of the huge changes that are going to happen are that there are a lot of I guess baby boomer business owners that are coming towards the end of their career, and so I think that the average age of business owners is changing a great deal. I think that the younger generation are less likely to want to be involved in some of those more traditional businesses. So the one thing that I'm hugely passionate about at the moment is around exit planning and planning for the future. Because if we're not careful with, I guess, without sounding too negative about this, is there are quite a lot of small businesses with probably 5 to 10 employees, whereas at the moment, the minute the business owner wants to leave, either out of their own choice or something like health issues or something like that, there's potentially 5 to 10 people out of a job, and the business will just shut the doors. And so I think that I'm really stressing to, or trying to stress to our clients and the outside world, is that we have to plan ahead and think about whether there's mergers that need to happen to stop this happen, or better exit plan. And I think naturally the younger generation in the world that we live now will some of them just want to maybe work, like you or I on a laptop and maybe not do some of these more traditional businesses. So I think there's going to be some huge change, and it won't happen overnight, but the planning for those guys is really, really key. And my job's to set their expectations in terms of what an exit is likely to look like. Everybody's retirement plan is to sell their house and sell their business, but in reality, they don't want to sell their house and they might not be able to sell their business. And so our job is to spend many years working with them to see if we can actually make that happen. And if we can't make that happen, maybe they keep the business forever, but they just bring through a management team. So I think that's going to be huge in our space, that we've got to really, really work hard with these clients to protect against these, potential issues.
This is a very interesting topic, and I'd say we would need to have another episode to go over everything, because that's such a range of areas that we can discuss. And an exit strategy altogether is just like a great topic that can take hours to go through. But yeah, I appreciate your time, Jamie. I appreciate all of your experience and all of your core strategies and strength that you shared with us. I think it's going to be very helpful to some businesses out there. And I hope we do some episode down the line as well, when you see some new expansion and growth in the right direction, and some new trends being applied to your company as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marcel. Lovely to see you again, and thank you for your time today.
Yeah, pleasure. And thank you everybody for listening and watching. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.